Hello everyone, today I want to talk about the sequencer in the Roland MC303 a little bit. But before I do, I want to talk about something else. Someone left me a comment making me aware that these buttons seem to be switched around in my machine. So I was a bit irritated when I saw that when pressing pattern set, there was no light for this button. And yeah, this I now it's confirmed that this is probably because I bought this used, and the one who had this unit before me must have opened it at some point, repaired it, and then accidentally switched these two buttons around. So that's why your unit most likely doesn't look like mine with these two buttons here. All right, so thanks for the comment. Now I want to talk about the sequencer, but I have to make this multiple parts on the sequencer because it is really quite a complex issue here. And I think that many people dislike the MC303 mostly for its sequencer because it is a bit complicated to use. But when you have understood the concept, then you realize that it's not only complicated but also very, very powerful, and even in some ways better than some of these more modern concepts that we find in machines like the TR8, the TR8S, or MC707. Believe it or not. Okay. There is a problem when it comes to these different scales, which are the reason why I think this is so powerful and why I like it so much. You can switch scales while recording and laying down notes, so that you get to different positions in the grid. You can simply switch to another grid and then place notes at places that the like one fixed scale wouldn't give you, which is very cool. But there are a couple of problems associated with that, especially when you're switching these scales by accident, when you don't notice that you have switched to another scale, which can happen very easily. For example, when switching the metronome on or off. In this case, it didn't. Okay, now, because to do this, you have to press these two buttons simultaneously. And sometimes when you hit the scale button a little too early and then hit the function button, you don't realize that this light has also switched to the next scale, and you might think that you're still programming 16th notes when in fact you have now switched over to 32nd notes by accident. And yeah, so we have to be aware what scale we are in when we're programming beats all the time. And yeah, I want to demonstrate how to combine different scales within a pattern. Again, in the TR8, this is not possible. I'm going to show you how that looks. This is a blank pattern. There's nothing in it. We press record. Now we can make our settings for record mode. And here we have 3 different time signatures now available. The metronome starts automatically. I'm going to switch that off for now. 4/4 is your most common time signature, where you count the downbeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3/4 is yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then there's 2/4, which is just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you get less steps in these other time signatures, but I'm going to show you that later. For now, I want to focus on the 4/4 scale here. And now to start TR record mode, which by the way comes from these old classic drum machines, TR-808 and TR-909, and the TR stands for transistor rhythm, because these were rhythm programmers. Okay, so we have to press the record button again. Now press play, and then we can select our instrument holding down Shift and pressing one of these step keys. Okay, so now I have my kick drum selected here, and I can program downbeats. And this is the first, I should have cut down the length to only one measure. So I have to do that now. Okay, I want to clear for all the parts from measure 2 for all the rest of the patterns. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, so now this pattern is only one measure long. Okay, so again, pressing record twice, I can now again see the kick, and you can see that the position for these downbeats is available in each of these 4 different scales. When I switch to the next scale, I get a higher resolution. This is basically allows me to program notes that are twice as fast, and there are 2 pages now. I just showed you that I'm still on a length of only one measure, but this one measure is now divided into 2 bars, and I get the downbeats 1, 2 on the first bar, and then 3, 4 on the second half of the measure, which is indicated by this little minus behind the 1 for the measure. So I can see that these hits are in the very same position for all of these scales. Now there's the triolic scale, which only runs for 12 steps, then it repeats. This is the full measure from 1 to 12, and I have downbeats on not on 1, 5, 9, and 13. The whole last quarter note is missing, but instead on 1, 4, 7, and 10. And when it only comes to downbeats, it doesn't matter which scale I'm on. Again, this other triolic scale, which has a resolution of 24 notes per measure, is also divided into 2 pages. First page, second page. These are the downbeats on 1 and 7. So I only programmed one scale, and still in all the other scales these downbeats also show up with the kick, which is important to know. So now we can hear a difference when it comes to to laying down other notes, like 16th notes in this case. You just heard that the processor is so weak that it had, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a little gap because I was laying down the notes so fast that the machine has trouble catching up with the notes that I just programmed. So these notes will not show up in these other scales. At least it will look a lot different from what we can see now. In the 30 seconds note scales, there will be gaps now between all the even number steps will be left out, because the positions in the very first scale are the same as you can see now, again with these 2 pages. So I could program a roll here in a higher resolution, which is not possible in the 16th note scale. Okay, but now let's have a look at these triplet scales. None of these hi-hats show up here, at least not in this one, and also not in this higher resolution triolic scale that we have. Wait, actually that's wrong. I mean, these are hi-hats, but there are hits missing in these. So only the hi-hats that are also on the downbeats in this scale are shown. And let me see. Yeah, here it's the same. There are notes somewhere in between two of these that are shown that I can't see because the position is not represented in this particular grid. Okay, why this is useful when we think of maybe trap or something like that. Okay, I'm going to program a typical trap beat now, not necessarily because I like trap so much, but because in trap there are many, especially when it comes to hi-hats, they very often incorporate different scales and also triplets, and I'm going to show you how to program this. Maybe we should switch to a 808 kit for this. So I'm going to, and also maybe I should, well, the tempo doesn't matter so much, maybe 124 BPM or so. Okay, and I'm going to make a setup right to store these changes. And now let's program these hi-hats a little differently here. Okay, and also the kick. I'm going to leave the first kick, maybe make it a little louder here with the velocity setting. And maybe also a snare or something. The snare usually comes in on downbeat 3 in trap and also dubstep beats or something. And now we can have a look at the hi-hat. Okay, maybe let's say we want triplets for everything in on after the third downbeat here. 1, 2, 3. So something like that. Okay, we go to the triolic scale here, and we remember where the downbeats are: 1, 4, 7, and 10. So if we want triplets now for the hi-hat, we place them like this, and we could even now select another scale like the faster one, second page, and maybe program some even faster sounding 24th notes in this case. And it's already becoming a bit more like your typical trap beat this way. Okay, but I want to show you another technique for drum and bass. Now we need a different tempo, and I'm not going to program this in the usual 160 to 180 BPM setting, but also when you have a 303 clone or a 303 and you want to control it with a drum machine and sync it up to a drum machine, then sometimes these bass lines, when they are played back on 160 BPM or even higher, they sound very busy, way too fast. You cannot really use this in combination with such a fast beat. So you can tempo cheat so that you're actually only programming one measure, but it sounds as if it was two measures. And having these different scales available, you can kind of compensate for the problem that comes up then, is because when you are on a resolution of 16th notes and you're programming two measures within one bar, then you lose these higher resolution 16th notes and actually only are limited to 8th notes. But we can, when we incorporate these other scales now, like the 32nd note scale, then we have our 16th notes back. And combining the 32nd notes with a triplet scale for rolls, like a snare or something, we can fill up the space even more to make even fast notes for this roll. And I'm going to show you how that works. So I want a tempo like 89 or 90 for this. And now I'm going to start the recording again. Okay, and usually for our snare, where is the snare? Okay, we have the snare on downbeat 2 and 4. That would be like something typical, but here we have double these backbeats here, and I think the tempo is wrong again, and I don't know. I should have stored this. I'm back at 124. Okay, 90. Now I need to make a setup right again, something that I really need to remember. Now, okay, so the snare is all right now, but the kick, okay, this is where the kick goes. And I think I want to make these a little louder. Okay, that's already a very basic drum and bass type of beat. But now when we want to program hi-hats, oh, and again, the processor is weak, like I said. We could now switch to a 30 seconds note scale and maybe program this little these higher resolution notes here. And this is not possible when you cannot switch to a different scale while writing this pattern. Now, if we wanted this to be a snare roll instead of just one hit, we could also find this position in one of these triolic scales here and add another note for the snare. Okay, there it is somewhere. We want the faster scale for this, and I think this is the position that we need. Yeah. So even though we are tempo cheating here, and therefore in the scale that we started out with have a very low resolution for not exactly fast notes, only we were limited to 8 notes, but we could switch to another scale for 16th and then even combine these 16th notes, which usually, if we weren't in this tempo cheat mode, would be 30 seconds notes. We can combine this with this other scale to give us even faster notes. Okay, and this is really, really powerful. Really, really cool that we can do this with this machine. It's not easy to understand, especially because these downbeats show up and these other notes don't in some of the scales. Here, this is confusing. And then there's this problem that sometimes we switch to a different scale by accident. So of course, we need to know how this works. We need to know how to find the position that we started programming when we focus on a certain step in one of these scales and then switch to another scale. We have to know how to find the exact same position in this other scale also, and maybe where it makes sense to lay down other notes that work together in the way that we want for our sequence, for our beat. Okay, so now I want to erase everything again and show you what these scales look like when we use other time signatures. So I have to clear the whole pattern again, like this. Yes, I want to clear all, enter, and now this is initialized again. Everything's gone. We can now again go to record mode. Now let's use 3/4 here as our time signature and cut down the length to 1 bar again. Why doesn't this work? What? Can I not? I cannot select a length of 1. I don't know why this is. I am on an initialized pattern. Maybe this has something. I haven't programmed 3/4 in the MC303. I think this is really the first time I'm doing this. But I am a bit irritated why I cannot cut down the length to 1. It seems, well, it just seems to be that's simply how it is. Okay, well, good to know. When it comes to 3/4, we cannot program only one measure, apparently. Okay, let's start anyway. Now, I'm just going to show you these scales, how they look like now. When we press start, we can see that on this, what's usually a 16th note scale, now only 12 steps are used, and this makes sense because, okay, for these downbeats, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, only in a slower tempo. Okay, maybe we should also write these other, yeah, okay, like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Actually, I was wrong. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So, and then when we look at these other scales, this is again in what's usually a 30 seconds note scale. It's exactly the same, only again with twice the resolution. But all these downbeats should also show up. Oh, now. Now, what we see here, we can see that after 8 steps already, we switch to the next page. This scale is now divided not only into 2 pages, but into 3. This is the second one. This is the downbeat. So there's a separate page for each downbeat. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is the third page. In addition to this minus, you get a little dot indicated that indicates the third downbeat of this measure. You have 24 steps altogether per measure, and you just have to know that this scale is how this is divided. It's divided into 3 parts now. Same with the triolic scale that is in this faster, higher resolution here. So, and the other triolic scale only uses 9 steps per measure. This is a full measure where the downbeats are only 3 downbeats in this case, of course, because we're dealing with 3/4, and one measure is only 9 steps long. But yeah, we apparently have 2 measures as a minimum for this. Okay, I hope that this makes sense. I also want to quickly mention this play quantize function here, where we have, okay, I have to clear this out again, where we have also the option of programming 7/8 or 5/4 beats. But since there's no last step function in the MC303, we have to program these notes in the position that is closest to what the play quantize function later, where it then kind of corrects the note so that they fall into a 7/8 grid. I know this is, yeah, it sounds weird, and it is a bit weird, but I'm going to show you how that works. When we have our, let's say we're on our 30 seconds note scale here, and now we have 7 downbeats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then it repeats. when we use quarter notes, we have one too many, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I have to again delete some of these measures here. Okay, because I only again want just one measure in this sequence. Enter, yes. Okay, so again. Actually, these are the downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. But now, when we want 7 downbeats, of course we have to find different positions for this and place one of these notes probably somewhere in the end of the pattern, and then let's say like, and 3 more, probably like this or so, or maybe like, okay, now let's turn on the play quantize section here and select template number, what is it, number 70. So we're in play quantize, we look for our groove function, press shift and press groove, and now template number 70, and now let's see how this sounds. I don't know why this is so quiet now. Okay. But what we can hear is that these are not even downbeats. This one comes in too early, so we're going to move this like this. Okay, maybe like this. Okay, it sounds weird now, but when we have the play quantize, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is how that works. Okay, only so much for now. Maybe I'm going to make another